Hello everyone, I'm Vori, and today we have a very great news. Mover 2.0 was just pushed to main and to the 5.4 branch. This means that Mover will release with the 5.4 version of the engine. Okay, so what is Mover? Mover is essentially the successor to the character movement component, which essentially sorts all sort of problems that the character movement component has. One of the key features is that you can add it to any actor, any pawn, and it will support rollback and prediction in a very generic way. And one of the coolest things as well is that you're not limited to have a straight capsule on your character. You could put like a box or any other type of primitive shape, although the movement will still be done with a line trace in the center of the character using the actor location. So be aware, like if you don't put a straight capsule, you put a box or anything different than a capsule, you will have to handle stairs in a very specific way. Okay, so be aware about this. But besides of that, these are great news because it's a very modular movement plugin that will allow you to add movement modes in a very simple way and in a kind of easy way, right? It's based off the network prediction plugin, which was created by Dave Ruddy some years ago. Network prediction plugin handles prediction and rollback in a very generic way. And of course, like they did this movement plugin based on that. There have been like another examples of movement systems using MPP, like the one that I'm going to leave in the description below. And in fact, in order to make that video, I had to check that repository because the settings, the network prediction settings coming from the engine by default are not very ideal for this experiment. So yeah, this is the commit. Okay, I'll leave it in the description as well. And as you can see, they put a bunch of stuff there. We have content in the engine. We have a couple of maps. Again, check the description if you want to see the settings that I'm using for the network prediction plugin configuration for this video. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you. Okay, you will suffer a lot of latency, a lot of jitter, and it will be bad. So I've chosen two maps that we're going to review here. And these two maps, I think that cover in a very nice way all the features that we can see in the new Mover plugin. So let's start with L character movement basics. This map, we have like a bunch of features from base movement, like from teleportations, from layer movements, from possession, on possessions, teleportations. So let's take a look. Okay, let's spawn two characters. This is already using Mover. So as we can see, the simulated proxy kind of looks okay, yeah? And the autonomous proxy, I don't need to mention it, but it feels perfect. The autonomous proxy is quite nice. I don't feel anything weird in my input or anything like that. Okay, so let's start looking at the different features that we have in this map. You know, I feel like a big kid right now with many toys to play with. They exposed one way to see the sinks. So imagine that we have an object that exists in the server but doesn't exist in the client, which is the case of this big thing, right? This object, right, my client thinks that it doesn't exist, therefore it tries to go through it. As you can see, it's walking towards it. I'm trying to go through it and it doesn't exist. The correction only happens in the autonomous proxy, which is what we are expecting, which is essentially how the character movement component works. We are seeing at the full capacity a very great port, by the way. Let's take a look at the other model of corrections. In this case, we have like one object that exists in the client but doesn't in the server, right? So let's take a look here at the simulated proxy. So, whoopa! As you can see, the server is going to let us to go through it. Yeah, and if we look at the simulated proxy, we can see that the character can get inside the cylinder. And here my autonomous proxy is trying to get corrected every single frame. Yeah, and if we get out, we get totally corrected. There you go. So that works fine. Okay, let's take a look at base movement. It means that if we put our character on top of a platform, it will move with it. There is a little bit of jitter in the autonomous proxy. Yeah, a tiny little bit, but I think that's okay, actually. It's not so bad. Another feature that is, part of the full port is ramps. We can see we have like some that are walkable, some that are non-walkable. For the non-walkable ones, we just slide down as we would expect, and it also happens in the CMC. Steps, we are using a capsule, therefore steps works, and stairs as well. Well, that one doesn't, but because probably the step size is too much. And we have this weird thing, and I think it's a demonstration of how root motion works. Okay. We have here some friction. So if we put the character inside, we will see that there is some friction. Same stuff that happens in the CMC. So this is simulating ice. Here we have actually the first example of some movement abilities. So if we switch to this spawn, we can dash around. I'm starting to notice some jitter on the simulated proxy. As you can see, the green pawn is a little bit jittery on the simulated proxy. So let's try some dashes. I'm dashing right now. This is sweet, and I can also fly. If I press F, I will fly. So here we are demonstrating movement modes. Let's take a look at some other map, tech validation. First stuff that we can see here is that you can add in runtime new movement modes, right? In this case, we have a movement mode to follow a spline. This is quite cool. This wasn't part of the CMC. So if we jump into this path, we will follow the spline. Woo, woo, woo. We can add another flying mode, and we can enable it. Yeah, there you go. That's enabled, and let's disable it. If we take a look at the motor component, this is how it looks. Let me show it to you. So we have like movement modes that are identified by strings, and each string has like a movement mode subobject, right? And this can be extended, so you can write your own movement mode, and of course you can always extend them in runtime. So you could have a gameplay feature or something that adds more in runtime to this movement mode list. That's quite nice, actually. You see, we're using a capsule. Yeah, you don't need to use a capsule. Let's use a box collision. Yeah, and we put it here, and we move all of this here, and we are going to remove the capsule. So let's click on box, and let's add the proper collision. I think it's spawn. So hidden. Let's not hide it. Beep. Okay, so as you can see, we are having perfectly interpolated characters, predicted and rollbacked. Not using a capsule now. I'm using a box. So this is quite huge because this wasn't possible with the CMC. Well, this is great, and we can even stack them up. As you can see, it's quite crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very happy with these changes, and this is just the beginning. It's a very early release, but as you can see, it already works a lot. Anyways, as I said at the beginning, I will leave you a link in the description for you to look at another movement system using MPP, and to look at some config files that you will need to run this demo or this content smoothly.